Hi, my name's Lily. I'm a first year apprentice here at Beechworth Bakery. I'm going to be showing you how to decorate one of our mud cakes here today. This is a 7-inch mud cake, and if you look in our recipe book, there will be a recipe there on how to actually put together the mud cake and bake it. I'm also going to be masking it with ganache and making some chocolate ganache flowers to go on top later. If you'd like to know how to make our ganache, there should be a recipe in the book, but if not, any basic ganache recipe will work perfectly for a mud cake. It's about 1 part cream to 2 parts chocolate, and I made this fresh yesterday and it sets overnight so that I can put it on the mud cake today. Before you start making the mud cake, it's really good idea to mix through your ganache nice and smooth so that it goes on a lot easier. If you try and use it straight out of the fridge, often it's a bit hard and it can tear and break the cake. So I'm going to start by getting my cake board. I've got one here. You can probably buy one at any of the local stores. And I'm going to start by putting a blob of ganache right here on the cake board. And this helps keep the chocolate mud cake sticking to the cake board and not sliding around, which we don't want because it makes it a lot more difficult. Then we start by getting our 2 mud cakes. It's best to use the bottoms of the mud cake as the bottom and the top. So it's going to look like this after it's been masked together. So we'll start by putting one down straight and press it down onto the cake board. Then we'll use our delicious chocolate ganache right here and put a decent sized blob right in the middle. You can get a bit extra if you'd like. And then we're just going to spread it out nice and evenly, trying to get a thick, flat layer to go in between the 2 cakes. This is going to make it taste a lot better and help it sit nicely on top of one another without moving around. So if you find that you've got a lot of ganache sticking to your spatula, you can just wipe it off and dip it in hot water, which is what I've got right next to me. I also like to keep a towel or a cloth next to me to help me clean up as I go and keep my spatula nice and clean and everything else as well. So once you've done your nice thick layer in the middle, you can go ahead and pop the other mud cake right on top, upside down. Try and make sure that they're relatively straight and flat. That will help us with the final product, making it look nice and flat with nice sharp edges. Then you can go ahead and with your spatula, just scrape around the outside and getting off that extra chocolate ganache and getting it to have a nice smooth sides. Alright, once we've done that, now we're going to start masking the mud cake. That is a term we use here to cover and contain the mud cake so that it's nice and kept inside and you don't have crumbs coming out, and it creates a really nice finish for the pour of ganache, which I'll show you in a bit. So you can start by, you could go either way. Some people like to build up from the sides and some people like to build from the top down. I prefer to do the top going down. It helps me to get the nice top first and then move on to the sides. So I'll start by putting a big dollop of ganache right here in the middle. Make that 2. You can never have enough ganache. And then using the spatula, making sure you dip it in hot water to keep it nice and clean, and drying it off just so that it's not messy and sticky. Spreading it out carefully. Careful not to pick up, because if you can see right there, when you pick up, it starts coming off the cake. And when it starts coming off the cake, that's when you pull up and you get crumbs and it gets messy and it just doesn't look as nice. So being careful to gently smooth it out. If it starts to stick a bit more, again, wipe it off. Hot water is your best friend. And don't worry if it has crumbs or it doesn't look good at the beginning, because you can keep working away at it. You can keep going till you get that nice, smooth top, flat top, and smooth sides and crisp edges, which then will help you get the nice finished product. My motto for cakes is keep going until you're happy, and then just put your hands up, because at one point you're done. You just got to walk away and be happy with what you've done. So then we're going to start putting ganache on the outsides. Feel free to put more than you would need because, well, ganache is yummy, and you can scrape it away as you go afterwards. It's better to put lots and just gently spatula it out, going back side to side like this, and then cleaning your spatula. So if you go like this all the way around, using plenty of ganache, it helps to keep it all contained, and then we can start with our scraper and smooth it all out. Don't be afraid to make a mess, because you've got to make messes in life and then pick up after yourself. It's just how we do it. One of the things that I've learned here at Beechworth Bakery that's probably stuck with me quite close to my heart is that sometimes it's okay to fail and make a mistake, mess it up, just, make a huge mess, end up throwing a massive batch of dough in the bin because it's too far gone. As a first year, you make mistakes all the time, and sometimes you can't pick up after yourself and clean it up, and that's okay, because you've got to pick your head up and keep moving on. One of my supervisors always tells me, keep your head up, keep looking strong, and make sure you just try again and don't stop. Alright, so now I've finished putting the ganache all the way around. It's a nice big thick lot of ganache, and that's what we want, because we're going to start with our spatula. This is, scraper. This is a metal scraper, and it helps to contain the cake and gently scrape off. So I'll be using that kind of hand movement. Hot water, again, best friend. So if you start opposite you, on the opposite side of the cake to you, and you start pulling it around gently, don't dig too deep, just keep it nice and light, pulling gently around, and it helps to create that smooth finish. As you remember, we did put a lot of ganache on, and so don't be afraid to scrape quite a bit of it off, because we will be pouring more ganache on in a minute. So nice, swift movements, keeping it clean and neat. I don't know if you've noticed, but the ganache here is matte coloured, and if you've ever bought one of our mud cakes, you'll notice that it has a nice, smooth, shiny finish on top, and that's what pouring ganache will do when you've finished masking it. Alright. So just keep going. I find that this is where I make a lot of my mistakes, and I touch the cake with my finger, or I bump it, or I make it lopsided, but that's okay. You just keep going at it, keep moving along, and if you keep working it away, it will start to get smoother and neater and cleaner. So again, this doesn't have to be perfect, because you will pour ganache over the top. So I'm going to stop there with that spatula, and as you can notice, the edges are nice and clean, but the top is a bit messy and it's not even. So I like to take a spatula and start moving in an inward motion, scraping it off a little bit, but moving it towards the center, not hard, just gently. And in between each movement, wiping and cleaning the spatula. It helps to keep it fresh and clean and not smear what you've already made nice. Now what we're going for is a nice clean edge that will be very prominent when you pour the ganache over the top. If it's not crisp and clear, sometimes you can see a few more mistakes, but again, decorate it, put whatever you want on it. I'm going to put chocolate ganache flowers and swirls, and it'll hide anything you're not happy with. Alright, so as you can see, now it's a bit more clearer. From my angle, it's not exactly flat. I often go down to eye level with the cake to see if it's flat on the top, because again, first year, still learning. Go. Sometimes it's easier if you use a scraper as well to go around the cake on the top. It helps to give it that nice smooth finish that we're going for. And being a scraper, being flat, you often get more ganache off the top. So this is roughly what you'd like, getting to the point now where it's starting to resemble a bit more of a cake. As you can probably see, as I have done the top, I have pushed it out over the edges a little bit. That's okay, because I will go over that again and get it to be that nice, smooth edges. My friend the scraper. Go. If you find that your cake board is sliding around a lot, you can put a cloth underneath it to help it stay in place. That's one of the tricks of the trade that I've learned so far. Alright, so here we are, pretty good. I just have a few, this is what we call the lip on the cake, and we just want to take the lip in just a little bit, make sure it's nice and smooth. Okay, there we have it. So I'm happy with this now, and you should be happy with yours. It's nice and flat on the top, flat on the sides, got a nice crisp edge. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this in the fridge for about 5 to 10 minutes while we heat up our other ganache. I've got another bucket right here. I'm going to heat this up in the microwave until it's melted so that it's like liquid, dark, shiny liquid. And I'll show you how to pour it on top of the cake when we come back. This has now been in the fridge for about 5 to 10 minutes, and we're going to pour the chocolate ganache that I've just heated up in the microwave all over the cake to give it that really nice glossy finish that we're after. So as you can see here, this is my bucket of ganache. It's nice and shiny, and I've heated it up. I started with about 2 minutes and then stirred it and started with another 2 minutes. So total 4 minutes to get it that nice liquid, shiny, almost like a thick chocolate, hot chocolate is what you're after. So I've got this jug here, and it's going to help me to pour it nice and evenly all over the cake. So I'm going to transfer it from the tub into the jug. Alright. So here we go. I'm going to start pouring it. I find it easier to start on the side opposite you, and so you can start and work backwards so that you know that that side is covered by the time you've finished here. Just helps to get it to look nice and finished. So I start by pouring right on the top, right around it. Before I go on, I'll just explain. I've put the cake on top of this little bucket inside a tray that has 4 sides on it to help keep the mess contained. If you don't have a tray like this, that's okay. You just might be doing a little bit extra cleaning up. To keep it high means that all the chocolate will drain off. And it's okay that it sits on top of the cake board because we'll clean that off later. So yeah, just starting round, we want to pour the ganache thick, make sure it covers. Feel free to do 2 layers around like that, and then doing the top. And you can pour a little bit extra because honestly it'll pour off and it will do its thing. You just have to pour it and leave it. It will all be good. And so we can see it looks glossy and dark, and it's finished and it's dripping off. So we'll let this drip for a few minutes, and then I will very carefully, just not scraping the top of the cake board, just around the edges, put this in the fridge. And it's best to let it sit for no less than 10 minutes. I will do 10 minutes, but if you have 20 minutes is great before decorating it. Now that the cake is setting in the fridge, getting nice and solid so that we can decorate it, we're going to start by making some chocolate ganache flowers. So this is a nail-like device that you use for making flowers. So you start by getting your chocolate ganache and putting a little blob right there on the nail, and getting a little piece of parchment paper or baking paper, whatever you want to call it, in a little square, and sticking it on. And this helps it not to move too easily and helps us to have a nice secure place for us to start with making our flowers. So I have already put here chocolate ganache in this little piping bag with a medium-sized teardrop piping tip. To bake chocolate flowers, you want to have the narrow part of the piping tip facing upwards and the thick part downwards. That will help give the leaf or petal-like look. So we start by doing a little blob in the middle, twirling it around if you can, getting that nice little, almost like a teardrop, upside down teardrop kind of look. And then we start with our piping bag, and you just want to do little petals lifting up and pulling down. Start by pressing decently hard. You don't want to drag it too much, so you want to be kind of delicate, lifting the petals up as you go. Moving, twisting with my hands, twisting around like that. Lifting the piping tip up and pulling across. And then once you've kind of got a little bit of a flower shape in the middle, and it's okay to have these parts sticking out, that's because it's chocolate ganache. With buttercream, you might not necessarily have that. Then what I like to do is I like to angle the piping tip just a little bit more facing away from me so that it comes in almost covering the flower that we've already started making. And again, lifting up, twirling around as we go. So you start to get that inner bud-like look of a flower. Then, because we're making a rose, you turn it facing towards you, the opposite direction that we were just going, so that the narrow part sticks out a little bit more, as you can see. And pulling it across, going round and round, you start to make more petals going out. And honestly, you can go as wide as you like or as bud-like as you like. I just like to make it a decent size to cover the parchment paper, but not too big because we are going to have to pick these up later. So there is a chocolate ganache rose that I've made on the parchment paper. And now you can pop them in the fridge or freezer if you'd like them to be extra easy to use. Put them in the fridge or freezer for about 5 to 10 minutes till they're set, and then we can use them. The cake has now set in the fridge for about 10 to 15 minutes. And I'm going to show you now how to clean off the cake board very delicately. Pick the cake up, and if you have a spatula or a butter knife, all works. You just want to gently cut into the ganache and pull off. You can use hot water and wipe the extra ganache off, keeping the spatula or butter knife nice and warm. Cutting in, as you can see there, trying to get that silver showing again. Another method you could use is by transferring the cake onto another cake board. As a first year apprentice, that makes me very nervous, so I prefer to clean it off as best I can. Alright, so now you can see we have scraped off all the ganache on the silver cake board, and I've got a nice fresh, I washed this cloth and then wrung it out so that it's still a bit moist. And I'm just going to use it to gently run along the side of the cake board to try and get off any last bits of chocolate ganache. So we have a nice clean cake board and a nice beautifully poured finished cake. Now I'm going to finally put the last final touches of decorations on the cake. So I'm going to show you a couple of different techniques that I have learned in my 6 months here as an apprentice with a piping tip on how to get a nice rim around the top. So I'll show you a couple. You can just use a star nozzle. If you have one, you can use any piping nozzle. You can use a piping bag. You could literally just put anything you want. But what I've got here is ganache, chocolate ganache, and a medium-sized star nozzle. And I'm going to just show you right here on my bench how to do a couple of different designs. So the first one I learned, which is very simple, just rosettes in a row. So rosettes, you start in the middle and you pipe down, and then you do a little swirl around and then pull and finish. So that there is a rosette, and you do a couple of those in a row, and that creates a rim that you can put around your cake. The next one I learned here is what we usually do with cream and fill of our cream products. Is you put the piping bag on an angle and you pipe out and you do nice big loops like that. Pressing quite hard, and you want to get a nice thick long stream of swirls going round and round and round, and you do that all the way around the cake. Another design that I've learned, which I have yet to master, is piping love heart like decorations on like this, doing swirls to cause almost like a love heart or like a rope look going around your cake, pressing quite firmly and then dragging it out. Another way, which is my personal favorite and what I decided to use on this cake, is the back to front almost half rosettes. It's quite quick, but you go round pressing hard and going back and forth along like this. So you end up with, it's almost like shells or roses, or I don't know what you want to call it, but that's what I personally like. And then along the bottom, this is the last technique that I use, which I'll do on a rim around the bottom, is very similar to this one, but you just do it in one direction, like this. There we go. So we have little teardrop shapes like that. So I'm going to do this one on our cake now. First of all, handy scraper. Get rid of all of that. And bring our cake back. So I'm going to start with a rim around the bottom, just very gently. Because we don't have a lot of room on the cake board, we're going to just do very light little swirls going around. So I personally like to start, going from left to right, but it's a little bit hard to show on the camera. So I'm going to pick up the cake like this, and I'm going to hold it in a way that you'll be able to see it better. So I start by pressing into the side of the cake, pressing hard and then dragging it out. So pressing in and dragging it out. Pressing in and dragging out. And it's okay if it doesn't look great, because again, it's gonna get eaten. It's a cake and they're beautiful. So going along like this, all the way around the cake. There we go, that's the look that we're going for. So I'll finish that up, this side. There we go, almost there. If you press too hard, you can sometimes get too much ganache coming out, and then it overflows the side of the cake board. So nice small little blobs is good, and when you finish, if it sticks out a little bit, just put it nice and back in, and there we go. There we have the rim around the bottom. And now I'm going to do the rim around the top, but I'm just going to top up my piping bag just so I've got plenty of ganache. You don't want to run out halfway through, it will cause some complications. Alright, I filled up the piping bag nice and full now, so that we have plenty of ganache and we don't run out halfway through our design. So I'm going to start right here on the left side of my body. It's nice to go round in a way that you feel comfortable. If you're left-handed, you probably go from right to left. Okay, so starting, you want to make the rim not too far next to the edge because then it will slip off, but not too far in, because a professional cake would have a nice rim just around like that. So starting, pressing down. Alright. Going back and forth. If you have to stop halfway through, that's okay too. Just stop in a way as you're coming out of one of the rosettes, so you can go right back in with it. And finished. There we go. So that is my rim around the top, and I'm going to add my chocolate ganache flowers. So I've got them right here. They've been sitting in the freezer for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now, the best way to put your chocolate ganache flowers on is, because they're still a little bit soft, the best way is to use scissors, and you can use a nice pair of clean scissors and cut the chocolate ganache on the bottom. And it's okay if it smooshes a little bit, because we'll put some leaves around it and fix it up as we go. There we go. Put one on. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes, and I've got a nice piping tip here to be able to put some leaves on, and we'll be able to fix up any little mistakes that we've made. Alright, so I put two on. I'm going to add one more before
I put some leaves. So cut the bottom of the flower, not the paper. Trying to get all those leaves off. And then as you're about to place it, remember to close the scissors, even if it smushes the flower just a little bit, because we can flatten it back out gently with a spatula or a knife. So there we go. We have 3 beautiful flowers on there. And now I have my leaf tip that I have made in a piping bag. So I've just cut the sides of the piping bag to make a new tip on it for leaves. So start, and I like to do a little bit of swiggles and then pull. So starting underneath the flower, swiggle it around and pull. And you can add them wherever you like. Just add a couple more. There we go. I'm very happy with this chocolate ganache cake. This is a beautiful mud cake that I'll be able to sell in our Beechworth Bakery shop. Thank you so much for watching as we have gone through the steps of decorating this mud cake together. Thank you so much for watching.